San Francisco.
Oh.
When was Alan riding his motorcycle?
At 5 o'clock, Alan was riding his
At 5
motorcycle.
o'clock, right? At 5 o'clock, Alan was riding his motorcycle. Was Alan riding his car? Or was Alan riding his motorcycle?
Alan was riding his
Of
motorcycle.
course, Alan was riding his motorcycle. Where was Alan riding his motorcycle?
In San Francisco.
In
He was
San Francisco.
riding motorcycle in San
Alan was
Francisco.
riding his motorcycle in San Francisco. When was he riding?
At 5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, Alan was
He was
riding
riding
his
his
motorcycle
motorcycle in San
in San
Francisco.
Francisco. He was riding down Van Ness Street and came to a stoplight.
Oh.
Who was riding down Van Ness Street?
Alan was riding down Van Ness Street.
Alan was riding down Van Ness Street. What was he riding on?
He was riding on his
On a
motorcycle.
motorcycle. He was riding on his motorcycle. Was he riding down Market Street?
No.
No.
He riding
not
down
Market
Van
Street.
Ness Street.
He wasn't riding down Market Street. Was he riding down Lombard Street?
No. He was riding down Van Ness
Wasn't
Street.
riding down Lombard Street. He was riding down Van Ness Street. When? When was he riding down Van Ness Street?
At 5 o'clock, Alan was riding down Van Ness
At
Street.
5 o'clock, he was riding down Van Ness Street. Who was riding down Van Ness Street at 5 o'clock?
Alan was riding down Van Ness Street at 5
Alan
o'clock.
was riding down Van Ness Street at 5 o'clock. Was he in a truck?
No, he was on his
He
motorcycle.
wasn't in a truck. He was on his motorcycle. And he came to a stoplight.
Oh.
Did Alan come to a go light?
No, to a stoplight. He came to a
He
stoplight.
didn't come to a go light. He came to a stoplight. We never say go light. We only say stoplight.
Stoplight.
Who came to a stoplight?
Alan came to a stoplight.
Alan, of course. Alan came to a stoplight. What was he on when he came to a stoplight?
He was on his motorcycle
A
when he
motorcycle.
came to a
He was
stoplight.
on a motorcycle when he came to a stoplight. Where was the stoplight?
On Van Ness Street.
Well, on Van Ness Street.
The stoplight were on Van Ness Street.
Was on Van Ness Street. Was the stoplight on Embarcadero Street? Or was the stoplight on Van Ness Street?
The stoplight were on Van Ness Street.
Van Ness, of course, Van Ness. The stoplight was on Van Ness Street. Who was at the stoplight?
Alan came to a stoplight.
Alan was at the stoplight. Which city was Alan in? In San Francisco, of
In
course.
San Francisco.
Alan was in
San Francisco.
Where is Van Ness?
In San Francisco, the Venice Street was
is
on
in
Venice Street.
San Francisco. Of course, Van Ness Street is in San Francisco. Is Van Ness Street in New York? Or is Van Ness Street in San Francisco?
In San Francisco, the Venice
Of course,
Street
Van Ness
is
Street
in
is
San Francisco.
in San Francisco. Where was Alan riding?
On Venice Street in San
He was
Francisco.
riding on Van Ness Street in San Francisco. And he came to a stoplight. A red Ferrari pulled up next to him.
Oh,
Did the red Ferrari pull up behind him?
no, the red Ferrari pulled up
not
next to
behind
him.
him. The red Ferrari pulled up next to him. What pulled up next to Alan?
A red Ferrari pulled up next to Alan.
A red Ferrari pulled up next to Alan. Did Alan pull up next to a red Ferrari?
No, a red Ferrari pulled up
No,
next to
no,
Alan.
Alan didn't pull up next to a red Ferrari. A red Ferrari pulled up next to
Alan.
him. Where did the red Ferrari pull up next to Alan?
At a stoplight.
At a stoplight on Van Ness Street.
Street.
At a stoplight on Van Ness Street, a red Ferrari
Pulled
pulled up
up next
next
to
to
Alan.
Alan. Was Alan in a red Ferrari?
No, he's
No,
grew
no.
on
Alan
his
wasn't in a
motorcycle.
red Ferrari. He was on a motorcycle. Alan was on a motorcycle. What did the red Ferrari do?
A red Ferrari pulled up next to Alan.
It pulled up next to Alan. The red Ferrari pulled
Pulled
up
up next to
next to
Alan.
Alan. The driver was wearing dark sunglasses.
Oh,
So, Alan was wearing dark sunglasses.
no, the driver
No, no,
was
no, no.
wearing
Alan-
dark sunglasses.
Alan wasn't wearing dark sunglasses. Who was wearing dark sunglasses?
The driver was wearing dark
The
sunglasses.
driver of the Ferrari. The driver of the Ferrari was wearing dark sunglasses, not Alan. The driver looked over at Alan.
Oh,
Did the driver look behind Alan?
no, the driver looked
No,
over
no,
at
no.
Alan.
He looked over at Alan.
Alan.
Who looked over at Alan?
The driver looked over at
The
Alan.
driver of the Ferrari looked over at Alan. Did Alan look over at the driver?
No, the driver looked
Yes,
over
he did.
at Alan.
Alan also looked over at the driver. Who was the driver?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise! Tom Cruise was the driver. Alan looked over at the driver and realized that the driver was Tom Cruise. Who was the driver of the Ferrari?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise was the driver of the Ferrari. Who was the motorcycle rider?
Alan.
Alan. Alan was the motorcycle
Motorcycle.
rider. And Tom Cruise was the driver of the Ferrari. Who looked over at Alan?
Tom Cruise looked over at Alan.
Looked over at Alan. What was Tom Cruise wearing?
Dark sunglasses. Tom Cruise was wearing dark
Tom
sunglasses.
Cruise was wearing dark sunglasses. Was Alan wearing dark sunglasses?
No, Tom Cruise
No, he
was wearing
wasn't.
dark
Alan
sunglasses.
wasn't wearing dark sunglasses. Tom Cruise was wearing dark sunglasses. And he looked over at Alan. Tom sneered at Alan.